Sinn Féin is committed to making sure that our education system is inclusive and accessible for all children and types of learners. And we are committed to ensuring that every student has the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential in a supportive, inclusive and equitable learning environment. And currently, many barriers exist to inclusivity within our education system. Measures such as short school days, reduced timetables, permanent exclusion from school. According to the census of 2022, the level of education completed by disabled people was substantially lower than that of non-disabled people. I think the rate was roughly half that of disabled people. Disabled people were twice as likely basically to only have primary school education, and that level increases with the greater level of disability. More must be done to ensure that children with additional educational needs are supported to participate as an equal and valued member within the educational settings and wider society. And Article 24 of the UN CRPD, which Ireland ratified in 2018, places obligations on the Government to ensure that people with disabilities are not excluded from education on the basis of disability and can access education on an equal basis with others. The present strategy from the Government, however, seems to be to only react to crises. And what is needed is planning, not reacting. Advanced planning to guarantee sufficient and appropriate school places for children with additional educational needs in their communities, and adequate funding to implement this. Currently, parents are applying to anything up to 20 schools for places for their child, and they can receive 20 refusals, and this is absolutely soul-destroying for everybody involved. The parent of a child contacted me just recently. Her child's only in 3rd class, and she's already worrying about where she will find an appropriate school placement for her child. She should not have to worry 3-4 years out from second level. But presently, the primary legislation governing education for persons with disabilities is the Education for Persons with Special Education Needs Act, or the EPSN Act 2004. So while the EPSN Act was passed in 2004 to ensure that children with additional educational needs could be educated in an inclusive setting, 20 years later, many vitally important sections of the Act have not been implemented. For example, the Act included a requirement for individual education plans. I'm aware that many teachers prepare IEPs for their students, but it's neither compulsory nor inspected. And to this end, I, along with my colleagues Deputy Girk and Deputy O'Leary, introduced the Education Inspection of Individual Education Plans for Children with Special Needs Bill in 2022. And the purpose of that bill was to ensure this section of the EPSN Act be implemented as soon as possible. It would also amend the Education Act of 1998 to grant additional functions to the Inspector to examine and report to the Minister on the prevalence and standard of IEPs for children with additional educational needs annually, and to provide for related matters. My colleague and Sinn Féin spokesperson on education, Deputy Circle Clark, has also introduced the Education Inclusion of Persons Bill of 2023, the purpose of which is to provide for enhanced planning and coordination in relation to school planning areas, and make it a requirement for school management boards to consider how to support children with additional education needs, and for board members to undertake training in disability rights. It would also amend and extend the Education Act of 1998 and provide for the inclusion of information from special education needs organisers in school planning, and provide for inclusion policies in schools, and recognise disabled persons organisations with a role in agreeing the composition of boards and management of a school. The EPSN Act is currently being reviewed, and I welcome this. However, it was drafted to operate in a joined-up way with Part 2 of the Disability Act. The National Disability Authority and many other disability organisations and DPOs have advised that the outcome of the EPSN review may also have implications for the operation of Part 2 of the Disability Act, and have suggested a review of the Disability Act in tandem should take place, and the Government should take this advice on board. We still do not have a consistent approach for school placements, where parents do not have to pay to have their children privately assessed to secure a placement in an autism class or a special school. And this is placing unnecessary pressure on parents who cannot afford private assessments, and is placing them at a disadvantage to other parents who can afford to pay for these assessments. The absence of such a process is also placing increased pressure on Children's Disability Network teams, and these teams are seriously understaffed and are currently unable to cope with the numbers on their waiting list. I'm contacted by parents weekly about access to the CDNT, and there's a mixture of distress and anger and frustration and heartiment. We have got to the stage now where the CDNTs are not providing any information on children transitioning from primary into secondary school, which is why the complex needs aspect was removed from the set hours going into schools, as they do not have the information anymore. I can recall when I was teaching getting vital information on students who were coming into the second level school from the child development team at the time, and it's greatly missed. It was very, very important information to help students transition in a secure way. The Minister of State, Deputy Rabbitte, has indicated that there is a recruitment drive for the CDNT staff and that a lot of interviews are taking place. We hope that this will work and that it will alleviate the huge numbers on the waiting list. Nonetheless, it is evident that from the case in the CDNTs that proper planning was not undertaken prior to the launch of the CDNTs. On a more positive note, and to point to something that does seem to be working well, the school inclusion model, which is currently at pilot stage, has great potential for driving inclusion in schools. SIM is based on the principle of providing the right support at the right time, delivered by a range of personnel with relevant qualifications and skill sets, and building the capacity of participating schools so that they can support the inclusion of all children, particularly those with additional education needs. From what I hear from the NCSE, the model has worked well in the schools where it has been piloted. The biggest difficulty has been getting staff because it was a pilot scheme, and therefore there was a lack of permanency around the positions. And that needs to change. This model needs to be properly assessed and rolled out on a national basis as soon as possible, and we need the government to get on with that process. Finally, the summer programme is a vitally important programme for disabled and autistic children, especially the school-based programme. Along with my colleagues on the Joint Committee on Autism, I met with many groups and parents who have lived experience of the programme, and they told us of the devastation they experienced when their child did not get access. Priority access to the school-based programme is essential for children with autism and additional educational needs. Such a programme provides an opportunity for them to be part of a world outside their home, and it gives them access to school facilities such as sensory and occupational therapy rooms and secure play areas. The home-based programme is a good but is not an appropriate alternative for an awful lot of children. Thank you.